Yeah, I just wanted to thank you guys all so much for coming together for this night of celebration and recognizing student and community organizing for Palestinian liberation. And yeah, we're just so grateful for such an amazing turnout and just everyone to grace their presence for such a really important event and a space for community to come together and celebrate. And yeah, so we just want to start off by respectfully welcoming Elder Margaret to start off our celebration with a welcoming ceremony and also to position ourselves here. Yeah, and just a little bit about Elder Margaret. She was born and raised in Squahaluk First Nation and was raised in Ruby Creek by her grandparents. She attended school on her reserve and graduated from UBC. She has been involved with all sorts of events and activities within her own community and also schools in Vancouver. Elder Margaret loves to share her wisdom and introduce her culture to others, and she enjoys her life with family, friends, and community. And yeah, I just want everyone to join me in welcoming Elder Margaret up here.
Good afternoon, everyone. Good to see you. Smile. It's been so long since we've actually seen people's faces rather than looking at everybody in that little thing, that little camera. It's been something like a little over 2 years since we were all together. And I was together with some students last night in Cortland University. Very exciting, very interesting, and the celebration, I understand, for the students and the work you're doing. Congratulations to everyone for taking the time to recognize your community, your history, just like we are trying to deal with the government with truth and reconciliation, and it's quite a job. It's quite a learning experience because it's not just us First Nations that are having problems with our land and our recognition of our history. It's everybody who doesn't seem to be recognized as people on the same level as everybody else. There's always got to be somebody who thinks that he or she is more educated than we are and forgets that leadership needs to be celebrated within community with each and every one who is able to put the time towards leadership. And I'm so happy to hear what is going on within your community, with your history. Makes me feel better with some of the work that we're trying to do to recognize where we come from. With all the different natives within Canada, everybody says we're all the same. We're all natives, but we all have different teachings, different traditional teachings, different traditional understanding of the lands and of the water and everything that's around us that we live in. And my son is telling me to hush up. To have the government putting us with us is the Indian Act, which is a piece of paper that says we can only do this, this, and this, and our education in past history, no one could go beyond grade 6. If they went beyond grade 6, they lost their status as a First Nation, as a registered Indian, and they were taken off the banned list. If you worked out in what they called the white man's community, you were also too taken away from your land, your home. And it wasn't until just recently that some of mainly the guys, the men, start getting an education higher than grade 6, going into being lawyers because with the Indian Act and with part of the history, we weren't allowed to meet as a group to have talks of change in the community. It was against the law. It was against the law to celebrate ceremonies like the potlatch or recognition of anything done in the community. And I don't know if you heard about that one lady that was protesting quite some time, an elderly lady, protesting the rights of the highway from here to Whistler because of the history that was part of that land. She was put in jail, and she ended up dying in jail, protecting the rights where her family came from. So a lot of the stories that you hear are probably the same types of stories from your land, from everyone's land who is fighting for their rights and not having it recognized. And I'm so happy that you're taking this time to voice your concerns. And I'm happy that you're including us, even just my son and I, in your community. It means a lot because I'm questioned as to why am I working with students who are not First Nations? And I said, well, when I signed up for SFU, I didn't sign up just to work mainly with Native students. I think that we all need to stand by each other, help each other, understand each other's history, and be thankful to be included. I'm very thankful to be included in your family, the SFU family. I'll say a quick prayer, and I better hush up and let's get this meeting going here. Great Spirit, thank you for bringing us together today. Just guide each and every one of us with our concerns, letting us always remember that we are the leaders and the mentors of those who follow, those who witness what we say and what we do, especially the younger ones. I ask, Great Spirit, a very special blessing on all the seniors within our community and the young children, and just a very special blessing on each and every one of you present today and your family, all my relations, and thank you again.
Elder Margaret, thank you so much for that. Before we get going with everything, we just wanted to thank you in a really appropriate way. Ria is gifting Elder Margaret with a blanket and with some flowers as well. But it's always really important that as we're on these lands as settlers, that we continue to understand what it means to appropriately and thankfully thank elders. And this is the way we wanted to do it. So we really thank you for coming and talking about that shared struggle that all of us are experiencing. So thank you again. I will pass it off to one of these amazing people.
Thank you all so much, and thank you, Elder Margaret, for really starting off the ceremony in such a special and important way. Right now, I'm going to be passing off the mic to our lovely MC for today, Parsa. He is an undergraduate student at SFU. Sorry, I can't see. And he's also the co-founder at The Caucus. He is an editor-in-chief of Gadfly, and in recent years, he's had the pleasure of working and learning from people dedicated to the struggle and for a better world as well. So thank you, everyone.
That's me, y'all. Thanks, Ria. Ria is the current Vice President, Equity and Sustainability at the Simon Fraser Student Society. So, why are we here? I like to think that we're here to celebrate a year of labor and struggle for a necessary and just cause. Following last year's assault on Gaza by the Israeli occupation forces, communities worldwide, including our own, were quick to condemn the Israeli occupation forces' actions and mobilized in support of Palestinians. This kicked off an entire process at the SFSS, culminating in the unanimous approval of the Palestinian Liberation Issues Policy in April. We're here to celebrate the people that made that happen and reflect on the student movement and its position within the entire corpus of the Palestinian struggle for liberation. This night wouldn't have happened without the collaboration of the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies, the Simon Fraser Student Society, and SFU Students for Justice in Palestine. The Simon Fraser Student Society is a not-for-profit organization that represents all undergraduate students at Simon Fraser University. The SFSS provides their members with a broad range of advocacy work, services, and events. SFU Students for Justice in Palestine is a student group organizing at SFU in support of liberation and freedom for Palestinians. And the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies fosters academic and public discussion and understanding of Muslim societies and cultures. They've hosted the likes of Shireen Ebadi, numerous prominent academics, and fantastic local artists. We'd also like to emphasize the important involvement of some other organizations, including the Middle East North Africa Film Festival, the Toronto Palestine Film Festival, SFU School for International Studies, the Institute for the Humanities, Independent Jewish Voices Vancouver chapter, the West Coast Coalition Against Racism, and the Caucus. We'd like to encourage attendees, just some COVID rules. We'd like to encourage attendees to keep their masks on when appropriate and maintain reasonable distance from one another. And now I'd like to introduce Eda Ertan and Masa Kateb, who co-lead Quantum Care. Quantum Care is a local women-led business that came to life during the COVID-19 pandemic to help prevent illnesses and tackle pressing physical, mental, emotional, spiritual, and social health challenges, all while cultivating creativity, intentional growth, and self-life work balance into daily habits. Quantum Care's main mission is to elevate sustainable, accessible, and enjoyable wellness and growth practices for individuals and organizations in Canada and around the world. Eda, who's an SFU alumna, is a Turkish-Canadian mindful movement, wellness, and growth coach, a health scientist, healthcare designer, Meridian yoga therapy practitioner, sound healer, compassionate listening co-facilitator, compassionate movement instructor, and a Sufi whirling dervish. Eda's background is in psychology and health sciences with a focus on neuroscience, human development, and coaching. She advocates for accessible healthcare, especially to the marginalized communities, and is the founder of Quantum Care. Masa is an equitable justice activist from Damascus, Syria. She's a community developer, writer, traditional Syrian storyteller, and culinary artist, public speaker, and refugee advisor at Canada's first Refugee Advisory Network. Masa is the leadership and growth coach, managing director, and co-founder of Quantum Care. Her passion is to serve with a mission to inspire meaningful impact in the world, one soul at a time. We'd like to welcome them now.
Hello everyone, welcome.
Salam alaikum.
Salam, merhaba. Thank you for having us. I have my microphone, but I'm not sure if we can connect.
This is connected to somewhere else.
Okay,
Let's
perfect.
also rely on this.
So nice to be here. I graduated in 2017, so this building is new, and it's great to be back and seeing new faces, some familiar faces. So mainly we are here to lead a very gentle movement practice, as we know that with trauma-informed care, our bodies store a lot of emotions, and that turn into pain and discomfort, and also if that escalates to health diseases. So in our practice, we are coaching individuals, groups, and organizations to incorporate health and movement into their lives so that we can move the breath move the blood and our bodies. So that's what we are going to do. Of course, it's accessible. It's up to you. You know yourself. If you have any injuries or discomforts, you can take it easy. But if you are joining with us, it's going to be very grounding, connecting with ourselves, with everything else around us, and hopefully with all Palestinians all over the world. Just want to share one thing. Last May, actually, when things escalated in Gaza, Masa and I, we started offering movement and yoga practices 4 times a week for free and by donation. We raised a great amount of funds, and we supported a Palestinian activist on the ground that is now a peacekeeper, and she got educated by the Compassionate Listening Project. So it is always in our hearts how we can support, how can we actually walk this path as gently while we are healing these lands and healing ourselves. How can we also heal our siblings on other lands? As we know that we are all connected, we know that more now. So would you like to share?
A question.
Yes.
As everyone is sitting for the first part, shall I bring a chair for
I
you?
will get it. Yeah. You take on and I'll grab a chair.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. Maybe additionally, with all of this, as I am part of the Refugee Advisory Network of Canada, so outside of Quantum Care, this is my volunteer position, where we get to advise Canadian government when it comes to international refugee-related matters. The Palestinian cause is on our forefront. We already we already included it in our recommendations to the high levels officials meeting for UNHCR in December, and we are planned to be in Geneva this World Refugee Day in June, so in a few weeks, and I've checked in with other advisors, and we promise that the Palestinian cause and advocating for stateless refugees and Palestinian refugees is something that we're not going to be quiet about, and just wanted to bring that into the picture as well. It's a responsibility that we all carry as a humanity. And I'll give it to you, and I'll sit with all of you.
So the invitation is to really just focus on ourselves for a bit, because we are going to be sitting throughout today's sessions. And sometimes we don't notice because we are so much in our minds. We get focused, we get tense, we watch something, it triggers. And so how can we, throughout today, tomorrow, how can we keep checking in with ourselves? Okay, can I relax my shoulder? Can I relax my neck? So for that, my invitation is just to find a seat of your choice where your spine is nice and supported. If you have any injuries and if this means supported to you, take that. No pressure to be too tall. But if you can, just find that tall, nice spine, where our spines are the information channels for our whole system. And you can have your feet on the ground. And maybe hands on knees, one hand on the heart, one hand on the belly. Just notice your breathing, notice your heartbeat. And maybe let's take a deep breath in together. And exhale it out of your mouth. Yeah. Inhale together. And as you exhale, soften your shoulders, soften your gaze, your forehead. And another inhale, and bring that earth energy from your feet, from your seat, all the way to the top of your head and to the sky. And exhale. And again, maybe checking in with yourself as we connect to the wisdom of our body and also the wisdom within our spine, feeling the ancestors behind us, our siblings on the other lands, and this land as we walk and heal. Keep breathing and just feel your connections going beyond this space, as if you're a tree and your roots are reaching everyone in this room and then expanding into everyone else. Maybe just set an intention for this day, and maybe a prayer for yourself and for our Palestinian siblings. And when you are ready, you can just release your hands. And we are going to begin with our neck, as it holds a lot of tension. And just bring the chin towards the chest and relax your head. And just allow your head to get nice and heavy. And then with your next inhale, bring your head to the left shoulder. And feel that stretch on the right side of the neck. And breathe into that. And as you exhale, bring the chin towards the center. And inhale here. And as you exhale, bring the head to the right shoulder. And feel the left side of the neck nicely stretching. And as you exhale, bring the chin towards the chest again. And let's make circles with our heads, just a few, but as gentle and slow as possible. And maybe if you feel any tension, you can pause and breathe, or maybe bring a hand to your shoulder and give yourself a gentle massage. The pain in our bodies are like the child that cries for attention, and if you don't pay attention, it just gets worse sometimes. Next time your chin comes towards the chest, let's go towards the opposite way. And just notice the noises. If your mind starts to wander, just come to your breath. Our breaths are the medicine, it's life. And next time your chin comes to the chest, let's bring your head to the neutral position. And open your eyes. Let's roll your shoulders back and maybe look up. And then as you exhale, hands slide to your knees and look towards the belly button. Maybe you can just scoot yourself to the front of your chair just to get that low back stiffness to soften. And then as you inhale, gently open up, roll your shoulders back. Maybe a gentle smile around your face, around your eyes. And then as you exhale, look towards the belly button. And again, relax your low back. And with your inhale, open your beautiful hearts. We are so powerful individually and collectively. And exhale, look towards the belly button. Breathe into the back of your heart. And then as you inhale, just come to the neutral position. And here, let's acknowledge that our spines good to move it. So you can be just around the axis of your spine. You don't even need to do much. Or you can be like, oh, I didn't stretch. I'm gonna go kind of wider. So you can really stretch. Again, it's all up to where you feel your limit is.
Can you explain to people why it's important to move our spine with the muscles?
And the spine gets so stiff. Actually, my physiotherapist shared that every 20 minutes, as we are sitting, our spine muscles get really numb, or while we are standing. So let's go to the opposite side. And so it's really important for us to, as often as possible, move our spines so that spinal fluid also gets to move and the information is traveling even better.
And you can move however the movement comes to you throughout the day. Could be in motion, circles, any way that your body speaks to you.
And this is also massaging your organs. It's not just I am this body and the visible, but it is also massaging our organs, which stores all these emotions. And then let's come to a neutral position. Yes. Have your hands on your sides and just hold on to the left side. And inhale, bring that right arm towards the sky. Reach, maybe wave at us. And bring that energy. And then lean towards the left, just a little bit. And you'll feel that right side is opening. And then as you exhale, bring that arm to your side. Nice. Just blood is moving beautifully. Let's bring the opposite one. Wave at your neighbor, say hello, say salam, and then lean towards the right. And again, feel this left side is nicely opening. And as you exhale, bring your hand to your side. And just bring yourself nice and tall. And as you exhale, maybe right hand to the left knee, and just look towards the left. Just a gentle twist around your spine. And inhale here. And as you exhale, come to the center. And inhale, bring that spine nice and long. Core is active. And as you exhale, left hand to the right knee. And a gentle twist. Maybe you look towards the right shoulder. And inhale into your beautiful spine. And as you exhale, come to the neutral position. Let's bring that right leg forward and rotate that ankle. How does it feel? I always feel so good when I move my ankles. And now let's go to the opposite side. Yeah. And gently place it on the ground. Let's switch. It's so good for us to take care of this instrument, isn't it? And then let's go to the opposite side. As I always say, it's like a literally instrument. We always need to tune up and take care of ourselves. A couple more things. One right side forward, right foot forward, left foot back. I am again balanced with my knees. And as I'm inhaling, I'm coming onto this tip of my toes, open my heart. And as I exhale, hinge from my hips. And maybe lift your right toes towards the shin. You'll feel that stretch. And you adjust for your knees. You don't need to come to a full stretch. Inhale, look up. And exhale, come down. And a gentle stretch. And one more time. Inhale, look up. Roll your shoulders back. And exhale, toes to the shin. Inhale, come and switch. Left foot forward, right foot back. On your knees, nice and active. And then inhale, come on. And exhale. Left toes toward the shin. Stretch your legs. Inhale, come on, look up. And exhale. Toes to the shin. Hips back, inhale, look up, roll your shoulders back. This feels liberation for our siblings. And exhale, come down. And then inhale, come to neutral position. Shake those legs, shake arms. See if there's any other movement that you would like. Maybe move, maybe. Yes, exactly. You know it. So throughout today and tomorrow, our offer is that whenever you get a chance, just get up, move yourself, move your body, so that we can keep moving this energy. Thank you so much for joining. Hope you are feeling good.
Thank you so much to both fantastic folks. You might be wondering, why in the world are we stretching? And I would agree with you because I never stretch and I really should. Really should. My shoulders are pretty tight. But the reason why we're doing this is just to ensure that we have ways to really come into community together. A lot of times when we do organizing work, we bottle that up in our bodies, and we want to make sure that, you know, we're showing up to space in the best way that we can. And that's about letting that go, because a lot of times when we're dealing with systems that are so tough and hard and exterior, we also become tough, hard, and very like rock, to be honest. And it's always good for us to remain soft. So thank you so much for doing that for us. Really good way for us to ground ourselves, especially with so many atrocities that are happening specifically in Palestine as well. Sure. With that being said, I think it's my turn and time to kind of switch it over to Ahmed's presentation as a speaker, and I will send it to Parsa.
Next in the program, as Marie mentioned, is the incredible Ahmed Shahabuddin. Ahmed Shahabuddin is an Emmy-nominated journalist, producer, and actor. He recently left his position as a senior presenter for AJ+, where he produced award-winning documentaries focused on social justice and human rights to explore new forms of storytelling and develop a podcast. Previously, Ahmed worked as a reporter and producer for Al Jazeera English, as well as for the New York Times, the Huffington Post, and PBS. Ahmed is widely known for creating and co-hosting Al Jazeera English's flagship program, The Stream, an interactive live talk show nominated for an Emmy Award for Most Innovative Program in 2012. In 2015, Ahmed was a correspondent on 6 documentaries for the award-winning Vice on HBO, which he helped produce. In 2015 and 2016, he was featured on the Arabian Business Power List 100 Under 40, the world's most influential young Arabs. Ahmed helped establish HuffPost Live in 2012 for the Huffington Post, producing and hosting World Brief, a 30-minute interactive global news show. In 2013, he was featured on Forbes' 30 Under 30 list of young disruptors, innovators, and media entrepreneurs impatient to change the world.
So first and foremost, I'd like to say congratulations to the entire Student Council and everyone for the BDS resolution passing unanimously. It is quite the achievement, and one that inspires, I'm sure, not just me, but many more. I'd also like to thank the organizers for this opportunity, the Simon Fraser University Student Society, SJP, and the Center for Comparative Muslim Studies. So some of you may remember last summer at the height of the war in Israel and Palestine, as people in Gaza endured unprecedented violence, essentially. A reporter asked Biden, can I ask you a quick question about Palestine, while he was about to test drive a car at the Ford factory in Michigan. His response was, no, not unless you get in front of the car while I step on it. So the joke by the president, who's a self-proclaimed Zionist, it's worth mentioning, joking about violently running over a reporter who was asking, I should say, about Israeli aggression last summer. I think it says a lot about a lot. And I kind of wanted to begin with this kind of anecdote because, as we know, the coordinated and consistent attempt to discredit anyone who dares to speak up or reflect the reality on the ground under occupation and apartheid has been too effective for too long. That said, we shouldn't ignore that there's been some shifts, even if still somewhat marginal, on the public discourse, shifting for better representing the reality on the ground. A lot of it driven by people like you and some of the mobilization that you do. also often people on the ground sharing their stories directly, and by, I think, a newfound sense of unity, kind of that has been building since last summer, both across Palestine and the diaspora. So I think it would be a mistake, to take the use of new or more powerful terminology, which is very accurate, first and foremost, before being powerful about, ethnic cleansing or apartheid, Amnesty and other human rights organizations, coming out and making these public declarations. I mean, these were previously unaccepted or missing from the dialogue. So we should not necessarily see these as a huge victory, because ultimately without accountability, it's still quite hollow and meaningless. At the least, though, we've seen a shift in that more people, from a journalistic perspective, in the media, but also just public discourse in general, I think are unable to not acknowledge that there is an aggressor and a victim. So they're acknowledging the disproportionate power dynamic that is obvious to us, to many. So yeah, there are positive signs, but it's quite shameful still that it's taken this long to get to this very basic threshold. So when John Oliver or human rights organizations name check apartheid and asymmetry, it's helpful. It can be powerful in the moment, but if not paired with BDS or other measures, BDS in particular, but any measure to really hold Israel accountable, much like Western governments and companies have jumped at the opportunity to do so with Russia over its invasion and occupation of Ukraine. Without that, the reality on the ground doesn't change. Without that, the reality on the ground doesn't change, and the status quo remains the same, which only goes to serve, the supremacists, the Jewish supremacy, if you will, and the major powers, including the PA, the Palestinian Authority, the US, the West, everyone who's complicit, essentially, not just in perpetuating the occupation, but shielding Israel specifically from accountability. And many of you may know I've spent well over about 15 years now working across different parts of the US media, and I've witnessed at every turn the pervasive and persistent censorship around just reporting the truth of Israel's injustices, let alone challenging them, and also this sort of reluctance to humanize Palestinian voices, people, stories. And that said, since last summer, there have been, for example, 3 different op-eds in the New York Times arguing compellingly for BDS, which certainly marks a shift from, let's say, the last decade or so. Language still plays a huge role, not just in journalism, but I do want to focus on this. I mean, for example, it's quite shocking to me to hear from, during the Great March, when Palestinians were being killed by snipers in mass at the border, unarmed Palestinians. The head of Human Rights Watch was tweeting out that, well, Israel, condemning it, but condemning Israel's actions essentially, but saying Israel must prove that it has a legal right to do so. The fact that we're discussing Israel needing to prove legally that they have a right to essentially mass murder, I mean, it's quite shocking to hear this from an organization that at the same time, essentially in the same breath, calls Israel, an apartheid state. And I think it just goes to show how far we have to go on the road to justice and dignity. George Orwell wrote 70 years ago that modern political language is designed to make lies sound truthful and murder respectable. And I think Palestine's unfortunately a great example. I mean, much of the language around Palestine and Israel and the conflict, or whatever it's being called, clashes, so on and so forth, it's designed to rob the oppressed of their very struggle for dignity. So it's encouraging that the asymmetry is becoming harder to kind of deflect or obfuscate away from for Israel. And, John Oliver, I should say, or others are using the right language. That's encouraging. It's great, but without accountability, without BDS or advocacy for any policy change, it's really just signaling sort of vague moral outrage or commitments, let's say, without any sort of political commitments. I think sometimes the questions that seem obvious, like why does one group have the right to resist occupation and invasion or collective punishment, but another doesn't, they can seem quite rhetorical at times. But if Facebook and Instagram can change their policies on hate speech to allow Ukrainians and others living in that vicinity to promote not only violence against Russians, but, there's this glorification, this support, this tacit support from these companies for the Ukrainian resistance against Russia, why are Palestinians, not allowed to kind of resist? Why are they being suspended, their voices suspended, so censored on these very same platforms? I don't need to tell you that visibility is so important. And that's why I find it hopeful when Google or Amazon or Facebook employees write letters and speak out and leak out the double standards that exist at these powerful companies, and try to hold them accountable themselves. And I guess it's cheesy to say, but there's something that I think I will leave you with, if I can leave you with anything at all. Never beg for a seat at the table when you can build your own table. That is something that I wish when I was younger I would have maybe had a little bit more conviction around, because so many of us are trying to get a seat at the table naturally, but we forget that we can actually rebuild tables, or we can build our own table. Keep speaking, keep strategizing, keep voting, for these sorts of actions. Keep the pressure up for accountability. And when you do inevitably find yourself in moments of doubt, trust that we need each other, that we're stronger together, and have faith in that. Have faith in humanity. If for nothing else than to protest their dehumanization of us. Have faith in humanity and each other. One thing I do want to just say, if I may, like many other journalists who have traveled to Palestine to report, whether a handful of times or more, after a few weeks on the ground alone, you can really feel burned out. The grind of covering the ongoing brutality of Israel's occupation. It's something that most international journalists who come to Palestine to report, they end up leaving quite soon. I mean, they don't last because it's challenging in every sense of the word. And then there's Shireen Abu Akleh. I mean, she spent 30 years in the trenches, dedicating her life to the dangerous and the bold and daring work of reporting in Palestine and on Palestine. Even as it seems super bleak at times throughout those decades, I mean, what's so painful and mind-blowing to me still about this is that in the wake of the murder of one of the most prominent and respected Palestinian journalists, a lot of my colleagues and Shireen's kind of fellow journalists internationally continued to amplify Israeli propaganda about her death, especially in the immediate aftermath when people were still grieving and we saw what happened to the casket, to the pallbearers. I mean, the amount of reporting in English that gave equal or sort of more credence to the Israeli propaganda claim than to eyewitness statements. And that's like reporting 101, It was really frustrating. It was really frustrating to again see sort of how these terms like clashes and this political language I was talking about, these terms like clashes and died, or, Shireen dies, without really saying who or what, without any context. Her legacy should remind us that there is always hope. As bleak as it gets, as much as they dehumanize, there is always hope, and that we're stronger together, and that it is the youth, it is the new generations, it is the new sort of ways of thinking or of framing the narrative that are going to help to move us towards liberation and justice. And I just want to commend you again for this incredible, really important step towards justice and liberation, and thank you for your efforts. And again, when you're in doubt, just trust that we need each other.
We'd like to thank Ahmed for his wise words and taking the time to speak at this celebration. Now, I will introduce you to Marie Haddad, who will take us through the history of the SFS's Palestinian Issues Policy and the background of all the work. Shortly after successfully organizing to have the racially insensitive SFU team name dropped, Marie became more involved and later served on the executive committee of the Simon Fraser Student Society as the first ever Vice President of Equity and Sustainability. Here, she was able to build notable policy, practices, and support campaigns and movements that provided successful wins towards better conditions for marginalized communities or a justice-oriented future. Marie has been organizing with communities within higher education, athletic or nonprofit organizations, and student unions to include equitable and sustainable practices that center intersectionality, anti-oppression, and anti-racism. She is passionate about ensuring that marginalized communities are able to inform and engage within decision-making spaces. She aspires to continuously learn about showing solidarity in the best way she can for marginalized communities and to continue organizing with and centering Black, Indigenous, disabled, and/or neurodiverse people and allies. Come on, Marie.
Thank you. Hey everyone, that was very intense. As you know, I'm probably the most not serious person you'll ever meet until I have to be serious, so that was interesting. But yeah, we're finally here, and to talk about what has really happened, why we're even here, what are we even celebrating, and it's such an honor to be sitting here telling you a story. That is the biggest thing, because I think we forget about how much years it takes, how much struggle it takes, how much labor it takes from the Palestinian community in order to get to telling the story. So before we get started, I really just want to have such a warm thank you. This is not about anyone else but the community in itself. That was falling. So before I get started, I really want to have such a warm thank you to specifically two folks, Tulin and Delia. So if Delia, you could, that's Delia right there. Two fantastic Palestinian students, and Delia is a journalist as well, who have really put themselves out there to support this work at the SFSS. And I could say wholeheartedly, we would not be telling a story if it wasn't for these two. And so I want us to really welcome them with a big arms and with a clap of appreciation. So. And with that being said, I'll invite them later on to say any words that they would like to. These two people are the most important folks here. Of course, other folks, all of you are amazing, but they really came in and saved the day for me as well. So I really appreciate it. Alrighty, what has happened? What is the story? Where did we even start? So during my elected year, kind of a brief background. So there had actually never ever had been a equity role at the SFSS before. There really wasn't, people thought that there wasn't really a need for it. And as you could tell, probably after this year, you'll realize that there was a need for it. And I think that was really vital to really starting this and making a foundation, a space for implementing these policies, include also putting the right people in those spaces in order to make that happen, and creating roles in decision-making spaces that actually bring in the marginalized people, because it already is such a big barrier for marginalized people to get to the point of being able to speak at the table, let alone by themselves. And I think what's instrumental is that the people in power understand their positionality and their power within space. And I think it's very important for us to consciously acknowledge that marginalized people in places of power also need to conscientiously acknowledge that they also have power, and a power that they may have not had before. And what do we do with this? And I think the biggest thing is making space for folks like Tulin, Dalia, Parsa, Ria, all of them to actually advocate for this stuff. So it's really important when we talk about this, because the reason why we're here today and maybe a step ahead of a lot of other student unions is not because we're fantastic and amazing. It's because a base was created, and a base was created to make things like this happen. So my gratitude and thanks to all the students who worked so effortlessly hard just to get a proper system in place in order to do things like this. Not this past year, the year before, we actually had a whole governance change at the SFSS where we took our body of 17, I think it was 16 and 17 board of directors, and we had expanded our governing to the whole entire council, which is 60 student representatives. In doing so, we actually minimized the executive board and we included a VP equity role, and that's kind of where I come in place. And I was happy and honored to actually even be given the opportunity to serve the community in this way, because I know how tough it can be, how draining and emotionally draining it is that we don't acknowledge, and it seriously was such an honor to serve this whole entire year. So yeah, I'm gonna take you through everything that happened. So as you know, we started our first year as the first year that the council had ever been the main governing body at the SFSS, which is a really big deal. And in May 2021, we started off with a really, really big motion. It was the Palestinian Liberation Motion. So this motion had actually come to the table after several atrocities had happened within Palestine, specifically Sheikh Jarrah and Al-Aqsa. As many of you folks know, these areas and multiple areas in Palestine are almost like raided like it's clockwork. And I think this was one of the biggest times that younger people really saw this and were like, no, like we can't have this continue. And I really, really think a big part of it is social media. Aside from propaganda, social media has been a really astounding tool in these last couple years. So anyways, put that aside. We had started our first council meeting with a really, really big motion, which was the Palestinian Liberation Motion. It was a motion for us to first condemn the state of Israel's occupation of Palestine, to condemn the settler colonialism of it in the first place. And in this case, we had actually initiated to create an issues policy and a statement. So the motion was brought to council, and basically councillors had to vote to decide if we should do this or not. And if you don't really know what issues policies are, they're basically, issues policies are stances that the society take. So they kind of talk about like, what are we going to endure and what will we not endure? What are we gonna stand for and what will we not stand for? What are we going to ensure is our kind of principle, the reason why we're doing what we do, and what is not? It really shows you what the society supports. It shows you the principles that we do our work on. And issues policies act as such a strong tool for organizers, for campaigners, for communities to actually be able to do the work that they want to do, that they deserve to do, that they should have the space to do in order to reach liberation. I truly believe wholeheartedly that every student union, it's their obligation to be doing these things. It's simple. Most of your constituents are going to be marginalized students as well, and it's your obligation to be sitting down, listening, and not just listening, but actually taking action, doing the good work, and doing it in a good way. So that's a really big part. That's issues policy. So basically, in simple words, is we're putting an issues policy forward, or creating the framework in order to build one, in order to ensure that Palestinian students at SFU and who are the constituents of the Simon Fraser Student Society don't ever have to walk around feeling like their leadership don't have their back. And it was the reason why we had ensured that we stuck to doing this, because Palestinian students on campus and even Palestinian professors and faculty members, or even their allies, are silenced on the daily. Like, we forget this, and we forget how much weight people have to carry when they continuously are experiencing in classrooms microaggressions, when they're scared about being doxxed, when they can't even like speak or say what's truly on their hearts, what their families are truly experiencing without being trampled down. And it's not right. And, you know, academics areas in the first place are not made for that. And so I think a really, really instrumental piece in all of this is that we knew that SFU stood behind like academic freedoms, and it's about making sure that they do and that we do our obligation to continue that. And I always say, policy is power. It's the thing that actually creates the grounds to do the good work. But as Ahmed said, if it's not being applied, then there's no point for it. And well, the nice part about this is that all of you are sitting here, so it is being applied, and this is a really big deal. So I'm really happy that all of you are here. Thank you. I appreciate it. So this motion had actually come to council. It was a long, long debate. There's so many, actually past councillors who are here who are there. Put your hand up. I think it's Sarah who is there. Who else was there? Parsa, I know you were there. Balkis was there. So many of us were, and it really was obviously a very tough conversation. You know, when we're talking about these conversations, this is when you really, really, really see opposition show up as well. Not even like in that one, you know, discussion, we had heard so much like anti-Palestinian racism, it was insane. But seeing how much the community banded together was really inspiring. And it took a lot of organizing. It took a lot of organizing from actual council members to ensure that the other councillors were well equipped to understand the situation of what was even happening in the first place. And shout out to student organizers again for doing that work and for seeing how important it is to actually not only just send resources, because really at the end of the day, no one else is going to read resources. They actually put themselves out there to talk to each counselor. And it was really great being part of that work as well. So we had come to the council, although it was 4 hours, which was very long and tiring, the motion unanimously passed, i.e. not even one person abstained. Every single counselor on council voted in favor of adopting the issues policy and making a statement condemning the state of Israel for its settler colonialism and for its apartheid at the end of the day. And I just want to really just thank all the counselors as well and folks who are here today who are sharing this space with us too, because it shows that they knew the importance of their role in that moment. And that's why it's really important to also have really great people in power and places of power who are willing to listen and learn. So after that had actually sparked up, we had actually initiated a Free Palestine working group at the meeting as well with many other members. I will actually list the names because I always find it important to do this. So folks who were part of the Free Palestine working group, there was a series of people who were kind of coming in or going out, just depending on their position. But I'm going to thank everyone who was involved, because I think it's really important. It doesn't matter what capacity you're at, whatever labor that you put forward is much greater, and thanks, because we're here. Big thank you to Tulin, Alan, Sunwoo, Ash, Soraya, Gabe, Tiffany, Husnan, Parsa, and Ryan. Big thanks to all of you folks. I was there too. But I really appreciate all your work. So, thanks. Yeah, so basically right after the issues policy kind of was good to go, we got the thumbs up, we almost like started diving into it immediately to write the statement. Biggest shout out to Delia, who is of such great importance to this piece, because all of us were new counselors. We had no idea how to write anything, let alone a statement. So just really appreciating your labor for actually teaching us up how to do that. So during that stage, we were kind of like in the learning phase of really just educating ourselves, making sure that we were equipped enough to support the writing of this. There were many lessons that were needed to be learned, and I really appreciate the labor of explaining that, because that also comes with a lot of tiresome moments. But we had started writing the statement, putting it together. We had started teaching folks what an issues policy even was, how to write it. A lot of that knowledge is actually not even really taught. It's passed down by students. So it was really an honor to not only be taught how to write an issues policy by Balkis right there, hand up. Balkis taught me how to write issues policy, and I had passed that knowledge down to the Free Palestine Working Group. But so we started writing the statement. It was passed, which was great, and published online. And that's kind of where we started to see that kind of backlash. And I don't really want to call it backlash. I just like to call it noise, honestly, because the way the Free Palestine Working Group kept pushing, regardless of whatever messaging was out there, was really inspirational. And we made sure that it wasn't just something that would affect us. It was something that actually empowered us to continue the work that we were doing, and really fueling our anger into action. So during that time, it was pretty hefty, and I think we took a little bit of a break, and then we started drafting the issues policy. And we had, it's really, if you ever see the issues policy, it's very comprehensive. So when you're reading it, you have to think, okay, how did these people even start? And that's a really good question, because we literally were staring at a paper for a very long time. And I think we had actually taken a short break to just be like, you know what, we need to fully jump into this research, because there's no way we're gonna write this, and we're not gonna give it justice. So I had remembered so many of us were staying up almost till 4 a.m. every day, reading articles on ends, reports, videos. We were even looking at the propaganda to just see how people twist those situations and how they reword the narrative. And it is pretty astounding. And that was a lot. You're talking about students who are going to school, who are volunteering, who are also marginalized, and who are, have so many hours occupied. And it was just a really powerful moment to see people being inspired and people seeing the use of actually putting time into this. And I think the biggest lesson that I'll always take away is always take your time with those things. And always consult the community, listen to, be in the spaces, listen to how people are talking about this. If you don't know a word, look it up, start diving into the research. It's going to be very rewarding, and it was. So after that period of time, we had started drafting now. We had drafted for a while, and again, pauses to do those research bits, and we had finally towards, I would say the spring semester is where we really skyrocketed and started doing a crazy amount of work. I remember being on calls with Delia, Talene, Parsa, and others for probably 6 hours, at a time. It was crazy. And that wasn't it. It was also consulting it through so many of you. Many of you here are sitting as endorsers and contributors of that issues policy. So I just want to say that this wasn't just us. This was a literal action and movement of coalition. We couldn't have done any of this without all the contributors to this policy. I think this policy probably had
6 drafts, 5, 6 drafts, probably more. I wouldn't be shocked at all either. And it was a very, very long process. And so we started vetting it out to several groups to just see like their input. We had received so much great input and advice on the policy as well. And it was really cool to see it starting to come together. But a key thing about this is that it's wild to see that even when you're quiet, most people are also quiet. But then when opposition sees that you're about to get there, like you really do have the support, you really do have the ability to get this passed, that's kind of where we saw like a lot of uprise. Like we're talking about messages on like SFU Facebook group telling people to come out to like encourage counselors to vote no. And we had like received up, or personally me, I had been drowned with emails in opposition. And again, it wasn't the point, and it fueled our fight, and we kept going. And I know that those relations are also really scary on campus. I think people need to realize when you're here to study and do work and doing that in fear, it's very hard to do that. And I think I want to just like thank also the student organizers and helpers who put themselves out there to do that, because at the end of the day, like this campus is not safe. Like people were coming up to our offices. They were really going up to people and like not calling them out, but really giving them a hard time. There's like posters that we had up that were almost all vandalized for like Palestine events and talks. And this is what we were going through. I don't think people realize how terrifying that is for someone who's just kind of like getting to know who they are in the first place, getting to know what their interests are. And that's kind of like what you're going through. And that's like, honestly, the lived experience of many Palestinian students, which I think people need to really realize. Yeah, so regardless of opposition, we still kept pushing. We started doing the endorsements. We got a lot of endorsements. Happily enough, we actually got a Palestinian panel discussion together with so many folks who are actually in this crowd. I will be naming them later as well, so that we can acknowledge them collectively. So many folks who came together. We did a cool discussion, and it was really fruitful to hear students come up, students who now are amazing, great supporters, and who also like took a lot of that work into our last council meeting. Those folks didn't know anything going into that event, and they came out saying like, I feel like I like am prepared to just like fight, and then they were tremendously inspired. So I really am like so much gratitude to that, because I think we need to cognitively realize that us coming together and bounding together, we are the most powerful force when we do that, when we, stand hand in hand and really do come to support the cause, because I think that was one of the most staple parts for this being a success. So after that, we had started getting prepared in order to do the actual organizing. And we had to delay. And a lot of people can wonder why we delayed in the first place. The reason why we had delayed in the first place is because, of course, as you know, University of Toronto had froze their student unions, the graduate student unions fees altogether just for passing a BDS resolution in motion. And so we paused and we were like, let's casually get legal advice. And we did, and it was very helpful, because I think that's like one of the best things about like having a student union behind these kinds of actions is the resources that you can actually get through the union. So that was one thing that was super helpful for us. Once we got the thumbs up that everything was good, we just moved forward, and I think we came back like 2 times stronger. We're talking about a week long of students coming together, educating each other on what the state of Israel was doing with its apartheid and settler colonialism, and literally having teach-ins to like 4 a.m. at times, and then creating this had like really inspired many other people to create toolkits. I know Vivian, who's not here today, but will be talking about them soon. And Balkis had actually created some amazing toolkits for the student community to actually educate themselves on the matter and to find out how to support. And they had actually created some email templates to send to their council reps to encourage them to support too. And I think that was also a huge leverage. And Balkis is actually here today, so I would love if we could give folks a round of applause for that. Sorry, I'm totally like calling people out, and I'm like, appreciation. But yeah, so it was huge. And then we didn't stop there. Balkis had actually brought up the idea to table, and that was a huge thing for us. We, at the start, having the confidence to table and tell people to come out and tell them, no, what to tell them in the first place was never an option. And I think it just is a reflection of the growth that all of us had. Like, we're talking about not just growth of knowledge, like how to speak to people, how to critically bring up points, how to, argue in a way that actually is beneficial and gets people to come out. Those are things that we had to learn up throughout the whole entire year to be at that moment. So we were like, of course, yeah, let's do it. And folks like Sude, Ria is also here somewhere. Ria's here. Had actually come out and supported. We had tabled, talked to some students, got them out to actually come out and support. So then a couple of days later, 2 days later, was the actual motion that was about to be passed. And we had taken it to the table and had, sent out a really stellar presentation. Shout out Parsa and Delia, who actually helped with that. It was very powerful. We had so many students come out who already had their statements prepared. Delia, the day of, no joke, we were like going through our whole script, looking at everyone's statement, being like, no, take that out. Yeah, add that. No, emphasize this. Literally, hours before the meeting, all the way up until the meeting, people were preparing statements. So statements were prepared. Many of our student group endorsers had actually written letters for us to say out loud within the meeting. And it was actually very powerful because students only had 2 minutes to 2 minutes and a one time to speak, to kind of share their thoughts. And it was just so amazing to see people like acknowledge how important that 2 minutes was, and they literally made it work. And they were kind of like really focusing on where to extend from other points than just to kind of say the same thing. But it was really amazing to see. And although that meeting was also very long, as you know, it passed. And again, it passed unanimously. And I'm just so grateful for it. It was really an honor to work with so many student organizers, so many external organizations who really supported this cause as well, and to be part of this. And this is not about one person, this is about all of us. So just my gratitude to everyone who put their labor forward, regardless of how much it was. Biggest of thanks, and most of all, thank you so much to like the Palestinian community and Palestinian organizers, student organizers, who put so much of their time into this, and who honestly, like, whenever we needed support and whenever we needed help, they were there on the front lines, ready, and who honestly just fearlessly supported. And I think that is one of the biggest lessons that I've taken out of my organizing and my year in being elected is fear is not for us. And we need to fuel that fear into actual power, people power, and putting our fear into actual work and do something about it. And one person is not enough, but a room full of people, yeah, it's going to make a change. So I'm thanking this room full of people for coming out and for supporting us and for wanting to hear our story too. I really appreciate it. And I want to note that this is not my story only. So I am actually going to be, while we're going to be going into a awarding ceremony for some awards and certificates. And as I call up each folks, we are of course going to congratulate them, and within a line we'll allow them to come up and speak. But before we get that started, I want to ask Parsa, Tulin, you want to add anything to the story? Come up. Tulin is good.
He's an introvert over here.
Yeah. You're doing a great job. Parsa? You did great. Okay, cool. I think we could, oh, actually, yes, next. Yeah. Okay, so yeah, this is like a big moment for us. So I wanted to say thank you. Like, we couldn't have done it without you. And this is for so many folks who are involved: endorsers, community supporters, contributors, and the biggest and most special of them all, student organizers. That being the Free Palestine Working Group, myself, and mainly supporters, because seriously, all those folks together, we really banded together and we got this passed and we got it done, and I'm just so grateful. And I really think that we should all applaud ourselves for all the work that we're doing. Yeah, that's a really great question. So the Vice President of Equity and Sustainability this is kind of the types of projects that are in their portfolio, so they're at the helm of supporting it. But we're talking about like the executive and counselors all supported as well. So the whole executive is worth 7 folks, and the rest of council is almost like up to 60 people. So it was a lot of folks who came out and supported. I think our endorsers totaled around like 20 endorsers who were all amazing and who also came out to support. But yeah, definitely, that wasn't just me. It was all your work. I was just happy to support it. Yeah, I think if you go next. Yes, so this is, I would like to really just thank all of our endorsers. And I would like to say them all out and namingly them. So SFU, SJP. Actually, you know what? If you're part of these groups, I would really like you to stand up. And if you are part of the organizers that I say names to, please do stand up too, because I really, really want us to understand that your work and labor is worthy of celebration, and that's why we're here today. So SFU, SJP. UBC, SPHR. Yes. Come on, y'all, you gotta stand up. PYM, Palestinian Youth Movement. Yes. And Dalia over there, who is representing. Yes.
I mean, that is her own representative, but also Palestine Youth Movement.
Yeah. BDS Vancouver Coast Salish. SFU, Arab Student Association. SFU, Migrant Students United. And Sude is part of this, but yeah, Sude is in Turkey. And then SFU International Student Advocates. SFU First Nation, Métis and Inuit Student Association, Joelle, who is the coordinator, and SFU Students of Caribbean and African Ancestry, Valkis, who is former president and also on the executive team, SFU Disability and Neurodiversity Alliance, DNA. Vivian was a really huge supporter through DNA. We have SF PERG, so Simon Fraser Public Interest Research Group, who also Tulin is a part of. SFU Radical Individuals for Solidarity and Equity, so RISE, so Parsa is part of them. I know, right? Actually, RISE is a action group that was created through SF PERG, so pretty awesome. SFU International Student Studies Student Association, ISSA. SFU 350, which I know a bunch of you are of, so please stand up. I know Rhea who's also part of SFU 350 at the time, who supported a lot. So thank you. SFU 350 is a climate action club, but they actually were part of some pretty amazing organizing too, but definitely look into them. And we have Anti-Racism Coalition Vancouver ARC. Woo! Thank you. And that is Steve, who also helped us during the discussion panel as well. And we have Canadian Voices Against Racism, CVAR. And we have the caucus, who Parsa is also part of. And the Graduate Student Society actually had endorsed our motion as well, including one of TSSU, Teacher Support Staff Association, I think. But their committee, one of their social justice committees, had also endorsed this. So 2 of the other biggest student unions at SFU had also supported, and really grateful for that as well. So please join me in the biggest round of applause. Yeah. And honestly, we're going to hit another section. I'm going to start introducing now all the folks who had supported student organizers. And yeah, I'm going to call you up. I would really appreciate it if you could join us at the front, because we would love to award you in this ceremony as well. So I'm going to start calling people. We had actually created certificates for many of the folks who had come out to support us. This is a really simple way to say thank you, but we really, really hope that you put this on your wall, because you should be really proud of yourself. We're gonna get started on this. But there are some folks who weren't able to make it. However, this is being recorded. So I would really appreciate it if we could still all clap for them. So Vivian Lai. So Vivian Lai was actually part of DNA as an executive and had supported very, very, very tremendously with helping Balkis create a toolkit for students to actually educate themselves on the matter. And Vivian was one of those students who actually had joined the discussion panel and had really learned so much, and it had inspired them to really push forward this work. So much appreciation to Vivian. And we are going to also appreciate from IJV, Paul Tetrault. So biggest claps. If you don't know who Paul is like extremely notable. But Paul is a human rights lawyer who had actually supported UBC, I think it was UBC SPHR during the time when they were really facing a lot of scrutiny for the attempt to even bring a BDS motion forward. And he had supported and helped them won their case, and it's a really big deal. And Paul and Sid as well, who I will also be calling up, were able to come and join us at the SFSS Council and had gave such a thorough workshop and discussion, initial workshop and discussion, to really explain the atrocities that Palestinians were facing and the truth behind the history of Palestine in the first place. And I think this was probably the biggest catalyst for counselors to really support this. So much appreciation to Paul as well. And I might as well, actually no, we'll do the folks who are not here, and then we'll do the folks who are here. So the next person is Marianne, who is from UBC SPHR. Marianne is probably the kindest soul you'll ever meet, and such an amazing Palestinian student and organizer as well. Marianne actually was the host of our discussion panel and had done such an amazing job, and I know does some really astounding organizing at UBC as well, as folks brought emotion there as too, and she was part of the organizing there. So please, round of applause. I would like to send such a warm thank you to a really amazing pro-Palestinian Jewish student who had really put themselves out there to support us in the writing of the policy, the statement, and who had actually really ensured that we were safe in our spaces. So biggest round of applause for Martha. And this is also such a warm gratitude and thanks to UBC SPHR as well. Hanan, who is here today, had supported tremendously with the Palestinian discussion panel as well, and who is also part of organizing at UBC. I had probably texted Hanan too many times for like emergency support. So much love and appreciation. And I would actually like if you could come up here and we could give you a round of applause together. Of course. And you can stand here with us if you want, if it's too awkward. Yes, we will be giving them, and that will come shortly. So SJP and the caucus will be awarding them together. So they could come up. And we're transitioning into the people who are in person. And we actually should take some photos. If you guys want to stand in the middle.
In the middle? All the way in the middle?
Yes.
Okay, thank you.
And Parsa, get in there. And a photo. Next, I would really love to thank this person as well, who not only has been such an amazing personal mentor for me, they have also been a tremendous help and support for me, and I'm getting emotional. But much appreciation to Balkis Jama, who is the former SOCA president and who is also currently an executive. Balkis is an amazing student organizer. If you know Balkis, you know Balkis is the real deal. But much love, and I know Balkis had actually really brought in a lot of supporters and volunteers to help us as well. So thank you for that. Next up from ARC is Steve September. So. Steve was such a great help in the Palestine discussion panel, as well as he supported us through the discussion. But yeah, much appreciation. Thank you so much. And last but not least, we are going to move into awards afterwards, is Sid, who also is from Independent Jewish Voices. Sid was a great help from the start, actually, who had supported us in our statement, had supported us in the building of our issues policy, had come to help educate the SFSS Council, and who also sat on the discussion panel with us. So much appreciation to Sid as well. So round of applause. And don't sit yet. Yeah, I would love if we could all just take a photo together. Cool? Thank you so much. Much appreciation to all of you who were honestly such fantastic folks to work with, and I really, really appreciate you folks. And now we're going to move on into awards. So Ria, you want to come up? Alrighty, so you might be wondering, why are there two separate things? And it's really because these next folks are probably the staple reason why all of us were even able to get to a point to educating folks, to sharing that knowledge, to inspiring other people. And my love and gratitude, I will always, always remember this moment. And yeah, I'm gonna start calling some folks up, so. We would love to call up Delia Al-Masri, who is actually a Palestinian journalist. Delia is the roots of our movement, so I would just love for us to give her a very, very warm applause. And I'm going to give Delia a moment to actually come up and say a few words if she would like.
Wait, this one? Yeah. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much, Marie and Tulin. I'll keep this short. I've been helping out these amazing student organizers since last year. I myself am a UBC alumni, and I'm currently a journalist, so I'm very familiar with the process of both harassment with students and with journalists, and especially to do it at a place like a university campus, which is the height of harassment from Zionists and from people who attempt to shut down Palestinians especially. And so really just want to thank everyone here for even thinking of that. I also want people to just kind of have a takeaway message before you go home. In recognizing that the premise of the Palestinian liberation movement is about settler colonialism and Zionism, and those are the two components that I want people to think about here. Understanding that it's more of a political issue at stake rather than a humanitarian one, and I think that tends to get muddled, so I just really want people to focus on that and recognize that you have a lot of power as students here, and you can continue to build with organizers, and especially with SFU SJP, with the amazing Tulin Awad. She's leading SFU SJP, and so I really recommend people to join because they're always accepting new members. And community organizations, of course. There are so many ways to get involved, and I'm going to shut up now. So thank you so much.
Yeah, next up, we would like to award Parsa. Yeah, so if you want to come over here.
Do you want a hug?
I'll take whatever. Thanks, yeah. You guys got money?
Ain't got that. Oh, and like absolutely, like yeah, obviously Marie. Can you please come here? Get a hug, and this too. Thank you.
Yeah, just want to award Marie for all the work that she's put into this movement and into this issues policy.
Yep.
And then next, we would like to award Tulin.
No. Nah. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah.
I won't put much attention on Tulin, but Tulin is amazing and is really, really also the roots of this movement, and much love to her. And she knows how much I appreciate her, so I will not put her on the spotlight any further. But thank you so much, folks. Yeah, and that is it for the award ceremony. I just wanted to, I just wanted to thank you folks again for just listening and sitting with us for this long. We're going to give you folks a break, and I'll let Ria introduce you into that.
Can we get a photo with the folks who got the second round, like the first one? If people want to come back again. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thank you guys all so much for being here and just to grace us with your presence in this space and just to build this space of community and joy and just really celebrating this very momentous occasion and all the work that's been put in and all of this appreciation and ceremony that's happened. And now we're actually gonna get ready for food. So we're gonna start with lines going up just to the food, and our lovely volunteers are gonna help out with serving. And then after that, while we're eating food, we're actually gonna be screening some short films from some of the filmmakers at the Toronto Palestine Film Festival. So yeah, just that's kind of gonna be it. We'll also have some playing cards at each table as well, just for folks to have fun, get to know each other, watch the short films, and after that, just have a good time and just be together in community. So to start off with food, I think folks can just start to line up on the side, and then feel free to grab any table that works for you. But thank you all again so much for coming here, and I hope you enjoy the food.
Thank you, Leila Almawi. The rest of the time is for socializing. Grab some tea, grab some extra food if you want. That's what the rest of the time in this space is dedicated for. We hope you enjoyed our program today. We certainly enjoyed your presence. Thank you so much.
Much love to everyone. So grateful that you were able to come and share some space with us in celebration of the issues policy. And this is a community effort, and it's just really amazing to even be able to do this. And I really, really want to thank the Center of Comparative Muslim Studies as well for even funding this event and making this a possibility for us. It is really, really amazing when we see faculty and students coming together. So thank you so much. And thank you from me. This was really amazing. And I'm just so excited from the future. And Palestine will be free. So we could leave on that note.